that are being rendered. So we looked at how this add task to list, how this function is working, and also the sequence of these functions that we have. Okay, we also looked at how the search is happening, add search task button, and how this search is working. So in this scenario, we looked at various different functions over here. Okay. So in addition to that, here we have this filter function or an add event listener function, which is talking about. So this is my complete add event listener function. It takes the input and then it checks whether the information is available or not. Okay. So then after this, what we are trying to do is you're rendering or you're showing the information which is this dot found task. So whichever tasks that are being that are found, so you're basically rendering it. So this dot render is again a function that we declared, which takes an array. So the data type of this dot found task, let us see what exactly this dot render does. And if you observe, this is inside our event listener function within the function itself. So for every click event, for every click of your search task, so let's say I'm calling it, so for every search event, it is going to render a new set of tasks for me. Okay, so that is the reason why we are calling render within the event listener function itself. Let us try to understand the functionality by debugging it. So I'm writing call here again. Let me add the debug. Yeah, I think the debuggers are already here. I'm adding this dot render, and we will try to understand what would be the value and data structure of this dot found tasks. Okay, so going to this, I could see this dot render function is declared somewhere on the top. Let's scroll there. Yeah, here. So the expectation is it should come, the execution should finally come here. Okay, I'm going to the next step. I'm clicking on search task. So as soon as I clicked on it, I could see my execution came inside my add event listener as expected and as we saw already. And then it came to the loop. It is trying to filter everything. As you can see, it came into the loop twice. And then finally, see, the execution is done. And as a next step, yeah, this is the second time. Again, it is trying to search for it. And then once your search is done, because you wrote a loop here, filter itself is a loop. So from line number 120 to 131, it gets executed, or it gets it will get executed in a continuous manner till the condition is resolved, or for all the conditions. So let us say there could be a few instances where you might have multiple results, right? While you're filtering it, multiple search results. So this condition could be true, or these two conditions could be true in multiple cases. So finally, this dot found tasks is identified. If I just select it, I can see call home, which is matching with the text I entered. Now let's see how this is going to traverse. I mean, how we are displaying only those search results. So don't look at render as any inbuilt function. It is just a user-defined function. The reason why we named it as render is because we are just showing something. You can just rename it to uh, show tasks or refresh the tasks or whatever you want. Okay. So if I go to the next step, see, it came to render, and the chosen array is the one that got filtered. Your filter. So we applied some filter. So this is the actual purpose of JavaScript, right? So JavaScript basically does all the logical operations for you, and it finally formed your array, or the array which got selected. So then uh, you're you're clearing everything off. So this is basically not a right way of doing it, but as this is a sample, but we will see how to render stuff dynamically. So if you observe, you deleted everything and then you're trying to re-render whichever information that you want to show. So that itself is a huge computation. Just imagine you have some 10,000 records displaying on a single page, or some 100 records getting displayed on a single page. So it is not a efficient way of writing the code. But anyway, as we are just trying to understand the basics. So then if you see, it came to add prompt for adding tasks. So then it is again rendering your input function, input button function and everything, appending the child. And then it came to the search button. It is rendering the search, and then the filter button. So it is basically rendering each and everything step by step. Okay. And then it finally rendered call home, which is a filtered item. And my execution is done, and my listener activity is basically over. If I just click on play, the execution is over. Okay. So this is how we were able to do the search functionality. Okay. This is one. If we go to other functions that we have, so let me go to this to-do.js. There are a few items that we will try to understand. So coming from top to bottom, yeah, one very important thing that is here is you created a class called task. Task talks about one task, or I mean, it is a class or group of all these tasks, right? So where is this getting formed, or where are you pushing data here? You're creating the instances. So if you here, this is the place where you're creating it, creation of the task. Okay, let us look at reading it. How are you reading it? So while you're creating it, you said this dot task dot push. You formed a list of tasks. You can either call it as a list or an array. List is one, I mean, more sophisticated way of calling it, because all the newer programming languages, they're using the term list. So don't get confused. Most it is just an array. You're forming it, means you're basically forming an array of objects that is being formed here. Next, reading or showing it somewhere. Where are we doing it? It is in your here. Here we are rendering. Add search button, add list with tasks. This is the place where you're rendering it. So how are you rendering it is the question. So we talked about C. Now we are to C for create. We are talking about read, R for read. So when this, let us try to do this event once again. We will try to understand how this list is being formed. It is pretty simple again. If you see, let me try to add one tasks. Get plots, something like this. I'm switching on my debugger. My debugger is on. And then if I click on add task, see it came to my add task to list. Reason is my add task button got binded. We already discussed about it. Go to the next step. And then see here, if you entered nothing and your doing some empty event, it is going to give an alert for you. So it is basically checking if the string is empty. So this is an empty string, just two single quotes without a gap. And then you're checking if it is null, then you're throwing an alert. Okay, so this is your negative scenario. So, and these kind of scenarios are very important. Okay, so writing the logic, whenever you're writing the logic, you should always, a good programmer always thinks about the negative scenarios. Ki, what if it, what if it doesn't exist? What if the data doesn't come in? Okay, so because you're going to display some thousands of parameters on your, so when you scale your code or go to React or Angular, these kind of frameworks, what happens is you end up dealing with some lot of information, huge ton of information. So you always need to make sure of exception handling. We will discuss as a concept altogether. But yeah, so these kind of conditions are very important. I need to make sure the data should not be empty. See, for example, I'm pushing, oh, sorry, I'm doing some task on an array. Just see this dot task dot push. What I'm saying is, see if this is an array, then push it. So what if this dot tasks is empty or null? So there is no operation, or my program is clueless what to do, right? So these kind of null point checks are very important, and most of the developers fail here. So this is one important thing you need to keep in mind. So every time, for every function, you're calling the render. Each and every time you're calling the render. I'll tell you some problems with this code. Let just understand how many times this render got called. Number one, that is place number. This is my declaration, line number 19. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times. I'm calling the same function at 7 different places. Okay, so keep this in mind. So this is not a good approach. You should not call the same function multiple times just to render HTML, just to show HTML there. That's not a good practice. Okay, how to overcome? Just remember this point. How are we going to overcome this in a sophisticated way in React is something that we will explore. And then you have you're creating this array, and then yeah, sorry, one point I missed here. Let me come from the beginning. They're basically storing information in the local storage. Get groceries. Yeah. So I'm going line by line execution. See, if you observe, it is forming an instance here, an instance of text. It came back to our first function. Here, see, this part is being executed. Okay, so it created a text. If you see this dot tasks, sorry, there are 4 tasks already. My new task is not added yet. But if you come to the next step, see now, what is this new instance? This new instance is your object. It is not array of object. It is just a simple object. This is how your object creation happens. Okay. So declaring a class and using it somewhere or instantiating it is what you did. This is one of the task or one of the concept of your OOPs instantiation. And then you created a separate function to store it in the local storage. If you observe, you may ask, first of all, before even going there, we saw how to get information from your local storage. Okay, there is a function called window dot local storage dot get item, means whichever information you have stored it in local storage, you can use this function to get it. The opposite of this is to set. And likewise, you can remove it. So you can do multiple operations here. Okay. But anyway, there is a reason why he chose a function to do it. So let us see what is happening in this function. Save task in local storage. It's clear that it is a function, and there is a word called this, means this function belongs to the same class. It belongs to do list class. Let's see. Should be somewhere here. Yeah, there are two places where this is getting called from. And here is my local storage. You may ask why this line is not written directly there. Why are we creating a separate function for it? So this is a neat way of writing the code. Whenever there is a task that you're going to um, do on a repeated basis, right? Or a set of instructions that you're going to do on a repeated basis, it is always good to, isolate that entire list of tasks and keep it somewhere and use it. So this is, you're basically reusing it, just like a render function. You're reusing this function at three different places. If you see, the function call is in line number 32, and then line number 50, and then you have it in line number 56. It is being reused thrice. Okay. Why are we reusing it? It is also same uh, thing, right? It's also doing the same operation. Just imagine writing this entire line number 143 thrice. It is increasing the size of your code, and also it increases the number of computations that you do, right? Again, the same thing we saw. We are stringifying the information. You're setting the item. So this is the place where you're creating the local storage item. uh, Name tasks. So the first parameter, again, this is a function. Parameter number one, it is taking a string value. That is the key value. You can also call it as a key. So as I told you, key value pair. So this notation is something that you need to get accustomed to. So if you have an object name, say Revant, comma, something, or just like this. So the first one is your key, the second one is your value. So this is a key value pair. This is a very common notation that we use. Same goes with your Python as well. In Python, there is this dictionary. Dictionary is just similar to your JSON. So that is one way of representing the code. So, and this is a very important and much required notation, because you're going to define the objects, define people and persons or articles around us. So, and then, yeah, again, you're passing a function into it, a default JSON function. You're stringifying it and then assigning it. If you observe, this is the opposite of parse. Previously, we used a function called, if you search here, JSON dot parse. JSON dot parse converts string into your JSON. Stringify, the name, as the name itself suggests, it does the opposite. It converts, because this dot tasks, this is an array of objects, if you see, right? So if you observe, this dot tasks, it's an array of objects. Okay, if I write let a equal to JSON dot stringify, sorry, right, stringify this dot task, then right. Why is this 10 here? 1 second. Okay, there must be some mistake that I'm doing here. Let's see. Let's find out. Let's debug this. Okay, what am I writing? JSON dot stringify. Why a is 10? Any idea why a is 10? Let's understand the syntax then. JSON dot stringify. Okay, good. JSON dot stringify. This is my, if you observe the syntax, you are passing an object into this JSON dot stringify. Okay, the output should be the stringified format of your object. Okay, so when you get a stringified output or a string as an output, every element or every character or this alphanumeric stuff that you see, it will be individual alphabets, or sorry, what do you call them, individual characters. Okay, a stream of characters. So yeah, now why is this a, why is this so let's see this dot tasks. So what is there in this dot tasks? You have 5 elements. Okay, fine, the length is 5. Then if I say JSON dot stringify, it should give me the string, right? Then why is it not giving me? I passed an object into it. Okay, what is the difference here? What does it return is the question. Okay, so then it is correct. It is doing its task. Means if I'm calling this function, this is the return value that I'm getting. Well and good. But I'm just doing the same thing here as well. I'm saying let a equal to uh, the same. How does it matter? How does it vary? And if I'm printing a, why is it 10? Not, why is it not even undefined? Why is it giving some value? So let's say, or probably a could have been declared somewhere. If a is declared already, let's say, then we are overriding it, means we are assigning it a new value again. Then why not? Let's try to understand this. I'll say const a equal to the same. So let's see a. Again, it's 10. Okay. So now let us see what would be the return value. Yeah. So the return value of, so two things, whenever you're looking at a functions documentation, the first thing is obviously the syntax, and then you run it, you understand how it works. Then the most important thing is how many, sometimes you might not use these many function arguments, right? But you should be aware of what are arguments and what should be the type of my um, arguments. What should be the type is something that you can add here. So here, if you see the value, the first thing that it takes is the value that should be converted to a JSON string. This is one. And then you saw this, a function that alters the behavior of stringification process, or an array of strings and numbers. So you can basically add more, you can give more commands to how you want to stringify. So that can be declared here in your replacer. Likewise, if you want to just, this is just formatting stuff, the way you want to format it. Okay, so this way of writing functions is very common, and this becomes complex when you upgrade yourself to UI frameworks like React and Angular, as I said. Okay, this kind of function declaration you must be aware. Okay, now here there are few exceptions that you might get. Few exceptions. See what all exceptions you might get once you are using these functions and how to resolve them. Okay, now let us see. The reason why we are getting this much information, on the place where you get this much information is only the official documentations that you have. For this, it is developer dot your Mozilla basically contains your basic or the documentation for JavaScript, not any other places. The same works with your React. Okay. So now, if you go to here, now let us try this in a different way with other uh, items. Okay. So you're here, what you're doing is you're basically assigning a function. So this is a function directly to a variable called a, and you're basically declaring it like a simple constant value. Okay. Let me try with var, which is a character. Okay. Var a is equal to JSON dot stringify. Oh, sorry. JSON dot stringify. Achha, let me use some other variable. Sorry, I did a double declaration. Now let's see what B would contain. See, now B is fine. It is not having any problem. It is totally cool. Why? The variation here is there are two things here. Number one, these kind of errors we face a lot of times because the documentations that we refer to or the blocks that we refer to normally don't mention all the conditions. No one has patience to look at all the conditions, but you need to understand where it could go wrong potentially. One of the reason or one of the permutation or combination, whatever you call it, where it could go wrong. Now, what is the difference? So common with some common sense that I got, what I understood is okay, there is definitely a lot of variation between var, let, and const. When I'm using let, it is giving me some integer. It is not working fine. I'm not getting an expected output. As see, but the documentation is saying, see, you're going to get this output as a string. But in the documentation, they didn't even use the way that we normally use. You want your string to be stored in a value. That is how your real-time programming work, isn't it? So now, what is the difference between const, let, and var? So it goes back to our initial discussion on variations of JavaScript or versions of JavaScript, um, which is basically gone by our ECMAScript. Okay. So now one thing that you need to dig deeper and have a very solid understanding is difference between these three. Okay. So let us see what happens here. And also in addition to this, okay, first let us, I don't even know. I'm thinking from the way where I'm totally new to this. Okay. So after reading all this, there are a few points that I can capture here. One is, okay, scope of var, that is fine. They're talking about some let, scope of let. Okay, this is all fine. But what I see is nowhere I'm looking at the versioning. Yeah, here it is. Sorry. See, the first lines we normally miss. Utilize the let and const variables in the current JavaScript, which was included in ES 2015, that is ECMAScript 6, ES6 update. It is now used more commonly in modern JavaScript than the var variable, but they didn't mention that var belongs to ES5. Okay. So from here, I understood that, okay, var belongs to a different family, let and const belongs to a different family. From here, I might understand that, or probably now, what is the compatibility issue here? What is this JSON stringify? Which version does it belong to? Okay, let's try to understand. JSON.stringify, because I'm using two different versions here, totally, isn't it? So, and that is a very big problem. When you when you are mixing your code or using different versions of JavaScript in the same application, there could be a lot of complications that you might end up, right? Even if a single variable, see, for example, I'm expecting a string here, it is altogether an integer. If I write some condition on top of it, or an if condition, it says it basically, completely deviates my purpose of using this variable, right? So now we need to understand, what we need to understand is whether JSON.stringify, what is the status of this in ES6? Does it belong to ES6 or ES5, or can I assign it exactly? So JSON.stringify ES6, 5 or 6, let's say. Mm-mm-mm. Sorry. They should have mentioned somewhere. Mm. This is a older function, so this basically belongs to your ES5 only, not ES6. JavaScript, yeah, I think it is somewhere here. Hmm. JavaScript ES5, and I can see these are all the functions. There are even more functions, but these guys mentioned few here. See, this belongs to your ES5, but your let cons belongs to your ES6. So now, how to use, how to make it compatible? How does it work exactly? I want to use my uh, uh, JSON stringify function, but I want to use it with stringify. How to do that? So in these cases, normally the way you write the code here, this way of writing the code, or amalgamating or mixing two different versions of JavaScript, first of all, it is not preferred or correct. Okay. And if you face this kind of problem, you know, uh, the first thing that you need to do is you need to basically transpile the code. Now, this is a new term. What is this transpiling? Transpiling means converting by definition. If you see, this is a very generic term. This doesn't belong to uh, JavaScript itself, but it is a common process. Okay, you can see here. It is a process of converting a language into an equivalent version of the same language. Okay. So most of the times this is done in JavaScript because it is being administered by ES6. Okay, this is especially made for it. Now, how exactly do you perform this transpilation, and what exactly this transpilation does? Okay, before even going there, there is one very important thing you need to understand. Where does this JavaScript run? It runs on your browser, right? Browser is the software. If I am writing my JavaScript directly, or if I just put this piece of code on my command prompt, does it run? No, because it doesn't have a JavaScript compiler or a V8 engine. Okay, so every browser got its own V8 engine, or you can say most of these, as this is open source, most of the browsers use this V8 engine only to run JavaScript. But there are few restrictions here. Okay, let us consider a client scenario or a business scenario where you're working for a bank. Okay, and the applications of that bank were developed in 1990, and they were running really smoothly, and they're built using JavaScript. In 1990, does ES5 exist or ES6 exist? They're introduced very recently, right? So which JavaScript should I choose in this case? Should I go and learn it? It takes a lot of time. Just imagine, for you, it takes a lot of time. For an entire team to adapt to a very basic version of JavaScript, it's tough, right? So I need to have some flexibility to write my code in any version of JavaScript, but still it should work fine with my browser. I can choose any version. I can write my program like anything. I should have that independence, isn't it? Ultimately, the only goal that we have is write code in a shorter period of time in very less number of lines. So that is the place where you tend to have these or tend to use these JS transpilers. I just browsed it. Let us see what all options. The reason why I'm browsing it on Google is to, I can just use it directly or just tell you the name directly. But the thing is, see, I got this result as my first result. Okay, probably because it is uh, most searched or something. But I have some more options as well. So JavaScript transcompilers is JavaScript. Okay, this is all fine. Popular options you have are, yeah, Babel is one option. ES build is one option that you have, like TypeScript. Under the hood you have. So okay, this is some deep stuff. Okay, the reason why you should identify this way is because each and every month, or even in very less number of days, you tend to get a lot of open source options in JavaScript. Okay, because this is a very huge community altogether. So what I understood here is one of the most used one is Babel. You might have some multiple options, and most importantly, it's not like you can just use whatever you get on Google, isn't it? So there could be few guidelines or best practices that your team or your architects of your team might tell you ki you cannot use Babel. Yeah, in few let's say there is a vulnerability or some, because it's open source, anyone can do anything. If there is a vulnerability reported in Babel, let's say, every company should stop using it. Let us say there is some hack, some kind of hack that got introduced into this library, and let's say if it is giving some issues, right? You should find an alternative, or you should go with some guidelines what your firm is telling you. So that is the reason why for any activity that you want to perform, you need to first try to understand what all libraries are available for me, which one is popular, which one is most secure, what are the guidelines that I should use in my team. This is very, very important. And in especially in case of React.js and Angular, Node.js, Express, for all these frameworks, it is even more important. Okay. So Babel is something which would basically help us to transpile JavaScript code. It means, so yeah, the official site that I opened, it just right away indicates you can basically choose key which version of JavaScript you're going to write and to which version you want to convert it to based on your browser specifications. And one more important thing here is you need to know on which kind of browser, in which version of that browser your clients are going to work, or your end user is going to work or use it. That is very important. Okay, so so where will we get this kind of information? You get this in something called TSD. Okay, technical specifications document. So whenever you get onboarded to any project, okay, whether whichever kind of project it is, development, support, maintenance, whatever, you first ask them for your what are my technical specifications, or sometimes they call it as SRS, software requirement specifications. Likewise, so there are different names to it. So, and the document basically explains you all this kind of stuff. If you remember, in one of our class, we talked about NFR, non-functional requirements. Likewise, you have technical specifications, right? So this technical, just research about this technical specification document. I'm not going to dig deeper into it, but that is a place where you're going to get what is my browser, what are the browsers my code should be compatible with, which JavaScript version is preferred to use, am I allowed to use Babel or not, or shall I learn? Sometimes this could be one case. It could be an obligation for you to learn that version and then code into it. You cannot use any transpiler. Okay, so this is the bigger picture here, and this bigger picture is very important because we have multiple versions of JavaScript. Okay, so one assignment for you here in this for this topic is identify what are the alternatives for Babel you have, what is transpiling, not just for JavaScript, for all the other languages, whichever programming language that you are interested in, you can just go explore it. And what are the alternatives of Babel we discussed? Yeah, browser compatibility. How would you know about this browser? So there are various resources out there. Just do some research on this. And most importantly, why we are getting this? What is the difference between let const and var? Okay, the differences between these. I already mentioned about this, but there should be some practical understanding on it. Okay, I'm leaving this to you. So next, let's see. Any questions so far?
No.
So next, pretty much we talked about, we were discussing about how to render how this list is being rendered. Let's go there. Yes, we were discussing there. Okay. To inspect. I'm just adding some new task. Step by step. An object got found, your text. And then it goes to your, it is saving it in the local storage here. And it is then rendering it. Again, you're calling this render function. You now know how this render function is working. And then adding, again, everything is deleted. Add prompt form. Form is being added. Button got added. All the buttons getting rendered. Filtered buttons. All good till here. Now, here, see. Add list with task. This we didn't explore. Okay. So, the first line here is you're creating a UL element or a UL tag of HTML. UL is something which represents a list of things. Okay. Just like an array. For you in JavaScript, it is an array. Similar equivalent of it in HTML is your list to display a list of items. It created a UL tag, gave it a class name, and then you need to add tasks one by one, isn't it? So any one by one kind of task or looping task, you use your there is a new function that we came across that is for each. It is just like a simple for okay, just a sideline here. So for loop, if you are not just explore this for loop of your JavaScript. All right. So this is how your for looks. For those who are not aware of it, just you initialize a value, you take the length of it, and you iterate. You increment your value, then it basically goes into a loop. Okay. For each is pretty similar. It is a function, just like your map filter. It is an equivalent to that function, those functions. And for each, yeah, it's pretty simple here. You can write functions inside it, just like your map. So for each and every element, what kind of function do you want to perform? Okay, as straightforward as it. So here, if you come, look at this. This kind of notation we already discussed. Your function starts here, and it is, yeah, it is ending somewhere here, I guess. Because now you have an object. You need to take this object and then you need to render it one by one. You need to show one by one. Okay. So they are taking here chosen task array. Now, what is this chosen task array that we need to go back and explore? Sorry. Yeah. Chosen task array is the same array that is being passed. So what are we getting here? Add list with tasks. See, add lists with task is the same array your render function is getting. Means all the tasks basically in this case. Okay, you're getting all the tasks, and then let us go inside this. Where is my? Look at this. Current task I am referring to is get groceries. Is the current task that I am referring to. Your chosen task array is having objects. You just hover on it, or just try to chosen. I'll show you why this is being undefined. If you observe, for each is a function. Let me just zoom it a little bit. For each is a function. Okay. And you have an arrow function again inside it, because your for each takes this one. See, your for each is taking one function inside it. So this becomes the local scope. Your current execution is in the local scope of your function, this arrow function. In that case, chosen task array would be undefined. Your chosen task array is out of your scope totally. Okay, it is not within the scope. So this would be empty for me. But within the scope, I have my parameters called task, which task I am referring to. And there is something called task index. Now, where does this task index came from? Okay, we'll just try to understand it from here. Yeah. So by default, your for each function, what it does is, if you observe, my function is a separate function. So you're going to perform some activity. So you wrote this function separately here. It also takes index or sends index by default. Index means what is my, so your index basically starts with 1 here. So my index currently here is, if you see, 1. Okay. So these two are the parameters. So first thing is one object at once, at one instance. In the first iteration, the value of this task would be get groceries. Okay, let's go to the next. So it does all this. We'll look at all this activity again anyway. Now let us come back to our this one. Again, next my task is get clothes. Okay. Let us see if I can take the value of this task. Look at this one. Get groceries, what is the index? 1. Get clothes is 2. Okay, it by default, it gives you the index. And your array index starts with 0. Okay, so what is the significance of this index? Here, I don't think it is being used anywhere here, but yeah, it is used here. In most of the cases, you will have a lot of job with this task index. Okay, so this value, anyway, this is a default function. Okay, for each. And then what you're trying to do here is you created a UL. If you observe the elements, yeah, it didn't get rendered yet. It should get rendered. It is yet to get rendered. But anyway, so a li tag is li basically represents your list. Okay, li tag got formed. Next step, you created a division. Okay, fine. Let's see, what is this? Remove task button. Let's see what exactly is this. See, you created a division. So you're forming something like this. Let me annotate and show you. You have a UL tag, and then you're forming an li, and then you're forming a div. That is what happened till here. Okay. Next, remove icon. Then you created one icon. So this is a create text node. So this is one representation to render your icons. This is the code for your icon actually. If you go to the next step, it created a remove icon if you want to see it. Sorry. It is again, okay, this is your cross mark that it created. And then li class list add task. Okay, now what exactly is this? So let's break this down. You created all this. So till here, you looped in. Now you're talking about only one task, one object, or one person, one instance of your class. You took it, then you formed some. So till then, we didn't come to the data yet. We are just forming the HTML to display it. That is the target here, right? How this list is being displayed. That is what we are discussing. So if you look at what exactly is happening here, if you say li dot class list, let's see what is there in li dot class list. You have 0 task, okay, and then you said li dot class list dot add. So this class list dot add class. Okay, so if I want to try to find out what exactly is being rendered, Let's try to see. Sometimes you get suggestions like this. So it's better to use let here. Again, your transpilation. Okay. Yeah, okay. So this is an HTML element, so it doesn't take this value. Let's come here. You're adding one task into this. Yeah, it is getting displayed here. Here you can see. And then you're giving a class name to it. To remove task button, you're giving a class name. The name of that class is delete task button. Okay. Now what you're doing is for this li tag, for this complete li tag, okay, you're forming one list item at once. So for each and every list item, you're adding an event. So if you observe, if you click on any element, it is highlighting something, right? So whenever you click on it, what you're saying is event.target. So yeah, this is one more very important uh, function. See, we already looked at what this event listener do or add event listener do. It adds something into it. I mean, you can add any kind of event like click or keyword event or whatever to it. And then there is some new way of writing the code that you're seeing. Event. Now, what is this event exactly? That we will try to understand. Let me just show you what exactly this event is. Let me put my debugger open. I'm just writing some random value. Okay, going to it. Okay, we're going through all of this. Let's get into that loop. Filter added. Added. Yeah, step by step. So now what exactly this event is, we'll try to see. So, oh my bad. So for this event to, get triggered, you need to click on it. No? You cannot directly look at this event, right? You need to click on it, then this function will be invoked or this function will be called. So let me just close the debugger and click on any item. See, I'm clicking on this list item. For each and every list item, you added that event. I'm clicking on this home. Okay. See, now it came to our function. And one of the very important point here is event object. So this event object is very important for us, which basically defines what exactly is being done here. Okay, let us dig deeper into the values that this event would carry. Click on event. See, there are multiple attributes where it is clicked, how is it moving, pointer type is mouse, what is still text. Yeah, so these parameters are very important. It depends on the requirement that you're going to deal with. But anyway, one of the major parameters we will discuss. What is the current target? I mean, where exactly are you clicking is something. The li tag dot task means an li tag with a class name called task. Okay, that is what it means. So if you observe the HTML, here li, see, this is how it got rendered now. Your li tag is having a division called delete button and the class name is task. This is how you identify it. Okay. But for example, let us say there is one catch here. You're referring it with what? The class name. See, here, whenever I clicked on it, it is showing me the current target is li.class. Let us say my class name is huge. You can have multiple class names or multiple IDs. All those would be rendered here, or they would be shown here. So this event object is going to give you complete information on what is the event being performed. Okay. Likewise, what is your base URL? Other attributes that you got. What is my first child? First element child. See, my child element is this delete task button. You can look at it. If you want to access it like a value, you can use this entire event object. Okay, that is fine. Now coming to our thing here. See, you're passing the event and you're using event.target.classList.add task completed. Means the functionality that I added here is if I click on any task means the task got completed. Now there is a reason why we are capturing this, why we are capturing this whole thing. You need to identify the difference between a task which is completed and which is incomplete, because you have a functionality, you need to filter it out. So you need to have a way to identify or classify these two items. And one of the way that you chose, there are multiple different ways to do it. Eventually you will learn. But one of the major or easiest way to identify, especially in very conventional JavaScript HTML, is to add some class to it. See, now I'm clicking on the first item here, that is home somewhere. The first thing here, call home. Okay, that is the event task I want to complete. Now I'm bringing event target. Now what is event target? So here target, see, PQRST, event target. Okay, fine. I came to event target and then I'm going into class list. Okay, go to class list. Class list, this one, class list, fine. And then means, see, this class list you added, I wanted to explain it later, so I just parked it here. So one of the class lists that you added is task. Means what? Adding class to a particular HTML element can be done like this. Okay, you can add a class to particular HTML one. I added here. So task is one. The reason why it is a list is because you might have multiple classes for a HTML element. That's why. Then what you're saying is you are adding a new class list which is called task completed. Now it would make more sense to you. Next event. Okay, now see. Now what happened? Look at the target again. Yeah, look at this class list. Or you can see here. In addition to the task, now I have task completed. And now it is different from other tasks. Okay, this is one way of identifying it. Later, you will use the same task completed to filter out which are done, which are not done. That we will see later. That function is available with us. We will look at it at the filter functionality. So that is what happened inside this item. And also, in addition to that, you're changing the data. Changing the HTML isn't enough. You have objects. We are using JavaScript. So at this point, what is my task? What is the instance of my task? Call home. And to that, I'm changing an attribute called, if you observe, it is crossed or it is striked off. That came from your CSS. How it happened, that we will discuss. Actually, if you observe your CSS, so we didn't tap the CSS yet, but anyway, you said key, if a task is completed, test decoration line through that gives you the strike, and text generation decoration color is green. You are just adding some HTML to it, and if you observe, it is represented with a full stop, means it is a class name. Now come to your code. Then you're saying the task is marked as completed, and then you're saving the task in local storage. That's it. The same task is going there. The reason why you're going to local storage again is because in your local storage previously, if you observe, see this, go to my local storage, is completed value, it was false before. Now I updated it. That's why you need to update your local storage once again. Now imagine the same thing, or imagine this information is somewhere in a remote computer, which is in United States or Russia or somewhere. You need to update your data there. Means you need to send this entire information to that computer or to that server. That we will see when we talk about the APIs. Okay. So this is it. Next function. And that's it. That function is called and its job is over because it is an add event listener. It directly goes into it. That's how you completed this task and you added this cross symbol. Likewise, I want you guys to analyze the code. So again, to see how the functionality of this cross symbol works on all the other functionalities work. Okay, in the next class, we will be closing the discussion on this particular project. I think by now you would have got complete understanding on how to analyze the code, and you learned a few functions of JavaScript. So tomorrow we will try to close it off, and then we will start off with React.js. Okay, any questions? If you have, you can ask.
No, as of now. Maybe we'll try to debug more, and maybe it would be like new for us because code was
Yes.
already written, right? So as
Mm-hmm.
and when we practice, maybe we might get
Yeah,
happy.
you need to debug the same way that I am doing it. Okay, perform each and every task, put your debugger points, observe how the data is flowing from here and there. Okay, all right then. So that is it for today's class. We'll catch up in the next one.
Sure, thanks.
Thank you.